Hey, John Martinez back with you. This is a 21-day REI Sales Challenge. And yesterday, we talked about multiple decision makers, right? So as we started that lesson yesterday, we kind of started it off by me reading an email that I had received from someone who had gone through some of our more advanced training. So, hey, let's do the same thing today. Here's another email I received just a couple days ago from someone else in my training. Here's what it said. Hey, what's the best way, if there is one, around the sellers who all have to agree and can't make a decision in person because one of them isn't present? I run into this a lot with inherited houses where one or two of the sellers are there, but they can't make a decision until they talk to one sibling that never seems to want to sell. So my question for you all today is, have you run into this? Have you run into something like it, where you uncover someone who could potentially influence a deal, another decision maker, and you know that in order to maximize your chances of closing this thing, you know you've got to talk to them. You got to find out kind of what's their motivation and what are their potential challenges, objections, deal killers. We talked about this yesterday. But you just can't seem to get through these missing decision makers, right? You lose control of the deal. It usually gets even worse for you after you've given your offer because, hey, let's face it, after they've got your offer, there's no need for them to talk to you anymore. They got what they wanted, right? So that becomes really, really frustrating. And why does this matter? Well, it matters because you lose solid deals, right? But what if there was another way? Well, of course there is another way, or else we wouldn't have this lesson, right? There's actually two other ways we can handle this missing decision maker issue that so many of us deal with. So the two ways we can deal with this is, number one, change the sale, or number two, question through your prospect. So let's talk about each one of those. Let's talk about first what change the sale actually means. So let me start by asking you a question. What are you trying to get your prospect to do at the end of your sales call? You're trying to get them to close the deal, right? You're trying to get a commitment out of them. But does that always make sense? I mean, sit back and ask yourself, does that always make sense? In the case of these missing decision makers, what if you know, you're 100% positive that this thing is not going to go anywhere because there is that missing decision maker? You know, if you know that, what if there's a better way to handle it? If you know that, hey, I can push for this thing to close, but I know it's not going anywhere, we've got that missing decision maker. Well, here's what change the sale means. You simply want to change what you're selling. You want to change what that commitment at the end of your sales process looks like. So instead of hard charging for the close that you already know you're not going to get, what you need to start doing, or what I'll encourage you to try, is agree with your prospect that if they love everything you say, that if they're on board, you get to pull in the other decision maker. So what I mean by that is the sale is actually getting buy-in from your prospect to help you get exactly what you need so you can maximize your chances of closing the deal. So what might that sound like? That might sound like this. It might sound like, hey, listen, at the end of today's meeting, I'm going to be able to ballpark you on some pricing and kind of outline, at least for you, exactly how I'd structure this. But I know there's other people who might have some concerns, might have some things they want to see that I didn't take into account. So I really want to have just a very quick chat with that individual or those individuals as well. But I don't even want to ask you for that unless you think that makes sense. So why don't we do this? I'll outline exactly what I can do for you. I'll get the structure together from your perspective, and I'll ballpark you pricing at the end of this thing. And if you love everything you hear at the end of today's meeting, what I'd like to do is have your help putting together a phone call or a meeting. Doesn't have to be more than 5 to 10 minutes. With those other two gentlemen who's going to help you make this decision, or at least have some input. That way I can make sure that I uncovered everything and I really put this thing together the best way possible. So that's it, guys. That's how you change the sale, right? Notice how I told them I'd ballpark them. I didn't want to give an exact price. I just wanted to kind of get their attention, right? But I still got to leave some bait out there. I still want them to want my final offer. That's leverage, right? We're going to get into that in another lesson during this 21-day REI Sales Challenge, okay? So number 2, what else can you do? Well, you can question through your prospect. And this is your second best option. So you're not always going to get to do what I just did, right? You're not always going to get to sell your way into accessing the missing decision maker. It's not always possible. Let's live in reality. Let's live with the actual situations that we deal with. It's not always possible. I'm not going to pretend that it is. So when this is the case, the next best thing is to question through your prospect. So here's what that means. We're really going to try to find out what the motivation and what the deal killers potentially are with this other individual. If this individual is influencing the deal, well, whoever you're talking to, they probably know a little bit about what they think and what their concerns are, right? So you're going to ask questions like, hey, how do you think Bob's going to respond when you tell him about what we talked about? Or, hey, if it was completely up to Frank, what the heck would he do? What would he want to do? What would he think the best thing to do would be? Or, hey, when you go back and you talk to Susie, what do you think her biggest concern would be? Or what do you think would be that 1 or 2 things that if she heard, she'd go, absolutely not, don't do this. And after you uncover this information, when you get to your presentation, simple. You're just going to make sure you insert everything you learned into the deal, into the structure and how you talk about things, right? So guys, this lesson, every lesson that came before it and every lesson that comes after it, none of this is going to guarantee a sale. I'm not going to tell you it will, right? None of this guarantees a sale. But that's not what any of this sales challenge is about. That's not what any of this training is about, okay? Each step you take, each best sales practice that you implement will increase your chances of winning every winnable deal. And that's all this is about. Stacking the odds in our favor, implementing every best practice, so at the end of each sales call, we have done everything we possibly could to stack the odds in our favor. And when we do that consistently, we're going to win more deals. So let me ask you a question. What would your business look like if you started winning more of these deals with multiple decision makers? Well, if you want to find out, hey, time to step outside that comfort zone and maybe implement some of this stuff. Hey, give it a shot. You'll do it once. If you like the results, hey, do it again. This is John Martinez with the 21-day REI Sales Challenge. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.